presently. Members, we now turn to the Wildlife Powers Amendment Bill, and the question is that parts 1 and 2 and clauses 1 to 3 stand part. Ko mika whai Terry.
Tēnā koe, Mr Chair. O tira ngami mo te wharena, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Chair, I'd like to take a call on the Wildlife Powers Amendment Bill. Labour supports this. The bill attempts to amend the Wildlife Act of 1953. The bill aims to reduce offending against protected wildlife by increasing the powers available to rangers. The new powers aim to help rangers effectively detect and investigate offences and apprehend offenders. Can I just acknowledge the work of the Local Government Environment Select Committee, Mr Chair, for the work they've done. I notice in the commentary, I am a member of the Select Committee, sir, but vacated for a more knowledgeable member of Labour, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, our conservation spokesperson. But I do note, sir, in the report back that 7 submissions were provided to the Select Committee, and of course 4 made submissions. Mr Chair, I thought it might be useful for the House because obviously our Department of Conservation estate is very, very important to New Zealand. Just like the previous speakers on the previous bill, the Geographical Indication Wine and Spirits Registration Amendment Bill, this bill not only attempts to protect our wildlife, but is very critical to the New Zealand Inc. brand. And so, like I said, Sir, Labour will be supporting it. I'd like to share with the House the Select Committee actually asking from the Department of Conservation the extent, sir, of smuggling that currently happens in New Zealand. And we did ask the Department of Conservation to provide the committee with stats on the extent of wildlife smuggling, how many incidents occur, how many people are involved, and the amount of harm that is occurring. And I thought it might be useful to share, Mr Chair, with the response that we received by DOC. I found it quite interesting reading the report in terms of the extent of the problem. What I've gleaned from the report provided by the Department of Conservation is the native geckos, sir, are the main target for wildlife poaching and illegal export. New Zealand geckos are sought after by international dealers and collectors as they are colourful and attractive, very long living compared with other geckos. Again, a recent pair fetched up to $13,500 on trade sites, sir. So commercial values drive a demand for the illegal take of species that are rarer and hence more valuable. Lizard poaching, sir, again, I found this quite interesting. The height of lizard poaching in this country occurs now until April and May, when lizards are most active. And also the point that officials shared with Select Committee is commercial poaching activities are getting more and more sophisticated, with different people acting as purchasers, researchers, hunters and couriers. The other piece of information, sir, that I found interesting was that since 2009, the Department of Conservation have brought 4 successful prosecutions against 7 foreign nationals for capturing and attempting to smuggle 68 absolutely protected native lizards out of New Zealand. That's 4 prosecutions against 7 international individuals, with a combined total of 68 native lizards. So by my own calculations, sir, that's roughly 10 native lizards per international smuggler. And we had a prosecution rate of 4 out of 7. So again, it's just interesting that with more resourcing that this bill is attempting to address, hopefully we can get prosecutions not only higher than 4 out of 7, sir, but also to protect those 68 native lizards that seem to leave our country. Sir, I'll now just turn to the bill. Particularly want to focus on Clause 5. Clause 5, sir, talks about not only the rangers who this particular bill is giving extra powers to, but clearly identify the ranges that are not receiving these powers, sir. And I want to make note of them in section 39 Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Under clause 7 of part 1, new sections 39 AA, clearly certain ranges this does not apply to. So this is the part where these additional powers do not apply to fish and game rangers or rangers appointed under section 38(2 or any honorary fishery officers within the meaning given in section 2(1) of the Fishery Act 1996. Then, sir, we move to Clause 2 of 39AA, where we talk about the rangers who this section applies in terms of the powers that are conferred onto these rangers. And I just want to highlight a couple of them, sir, and then make a reference to a particular submitter who came before, who submitted to the Select Committee, and that is Clause 39A of Clause 5, powers to seize evidential material. And the section there talks about a ranger to whom section 39AA applies may seize any evidential material as defined in section 31A of the Search and Surveillance Act 2012 that he or she reasonably believes relates to the investigation of a suspected offence against the Act or any regulations made under this Act. And I'm glad the Minister has joined the Chair, because I just want to reference the submission provided by the New Zealand Law Society, where they actually talk about the power to seize evidential material. They talked about the express incorporation of the meaning of evidential material from the Search and Surveillance Act creates an inconsistency. Under proposed section 39A, the evidential material must relate to the investigation of offence against the Act, but the Search and Surveillance Act's definition of evidential material uses slightly different phrasing. And the phrasing that they refer to is in relation to an offence or suspected offence means evidence of the offence or any other item, tangible or intangible, or relevant to the investigation of the offence. So perhaps it's just a question to the Minister whether we have covered off that particular issue that the Law Society raised in relation to Clause 5, 39A around the use of evidential material. Sir, I'm going to leave it there because I know lots of my other colleagues have got a contribution that they'll make, but I'd like to make one a little later in the debate.
Mr. Chair.
I recall Catherine Delahunt.